1,000 years ago, this land was green and good, until the crystal cracked.
I absolutely love this movie, but growing up, I was terrified of this film. Just look at these things. No kid would see these things and be happy. When I finally gave the movie another chance, I was confused why I hated it growing up, but quickly remembered the Skeksis. This movie and the whole universe involved is just phenomenal, and I can't believe it's 40 years old already. I wasn't even a thought when this movie was released. Now make sure you help Forge the channel by going over and hitting that subscribe button, as well as the bell next to it.
At this time, Jen is the chosen one. Today, Jen's pipe gives no comfort, for today his master lies dying.
For this video, we're going to do things slightly different. Normally we have these videos split up into a few sections, but for this one we're going to talk about the little things, of course, and mix the character development with the story section. The story is very similar to a lot of fantasy and other sci-fi worlds, but very few worlds have me so invested and intrigued in not just the story, but the world overall.
To save our world, Gelfling, you must find the shard.
I think that the film is a great gateway film for fantasy genre as a whole because of how simple yet very expansive the world building is. The intro to the film is just fantastic. It feels like you're watching a poem and how every group has a similar narration.
A dying race, ruled by a dying emperor, imprisoned within themselves in a dying land.
The story is Jen's journey to fulfill the prophecy, but what I really enjoy is that he doesn't randomly get good and know everything. It's actually quite the opposite. He barely knows anything and has to learn as he goes. We know he lives and has learned from the mystics, but will not have to venture out on his own. It's pretty clear that he's scared, but is bravely proceeding anyways.
I'm not ready to go alone. All right? Alone, then.
And we see the first destination he goes to is Aughra. This woman is just straight up hilarious.
This is no Gelfling!
Of course I'm no Gelfling, you putrid lizards!
Aughra connects the dots that Jen needs to proceed with this journey. Really, she's the Yoda of the movie, along with the mystic from the beginning. She not only looks old, but she proves it when she says that she's been around since the beginning of the crystal breaking. She really helps push the prophecy along by even reminding Kira later to call upon the animals to help her escape the science trap. In all honesty though, she simply just lightens the mood, along with Fizzgig, who is the cutest yet ugliest fuzzball I've ever seen.
Fizzgig, avoye Jen. Fizzgig, you seem very strange to him.
He seems pretty strange to me.
What I love most about this movie is the addition of Kira. Especially for its time, she's a great character choice, and honestly ahead of her time. She proves not to just be some useless romance option. Instead, she's knowledgeable and brave. I'd actually argue that Jen is more the damsel here than she is. She also brings her own strength to help Jen. While Jen has to fulfill the prophecy, she fills in the gaps, while again spreading the universe. We assume the Gelflings are just the Kryptonians of this story, but Kira, as lightly mentioned earlier, can call the assistance of the animals. We see this visibly when she even soothes Fizzgig and calls for the Landstrider. Not to mention, she has freaking wings.
Wings? I don't have wings.
Of course not. You're a boy.
I also really enjoy the way they were similar yet different. While both being drastically different in their upbringing, they did both lose their parents at a young age. But it seems Kira actually had to watch her family get murdered. I felt like Kira was more of a poor upbringing while Jen was more of the spoiled one with the mystics. Jen had more of an education while Kira learned a lot more about joy and happiness despite her rough childhood. Together though, they do prove unstoppable. When they stumble upon the old Gelfling ruins, they put the pieces together of the prophecy that they have to fulfill together. And they do. Which leads us to the disgusting Skeksis. Their true reason for living is craving the essence and sourcing it from the podlings since they got rid of all the Gelflings.
It won't hurt. We just want to drain your living essence. And now the beam will rid you of your fears, your thoughts, your vital essence.
We get the impression that the best essence is from the Gelfling, since they did murder all of them. We see this later on when it also takes longer for Kira to be drained in comparison to the podlings. The way the story handles the mystics and Skeksis was very cool. I remember when I first saw this, I didn't expect them to be connected, and I always enjoy the hints that lead up to them joining again. Seeing the small things like the blood on the one's hands after the Chamberlain gets injured, and the obvious one of the older ones dying in the beginning. The Chamberlain is the first to try and become the new emperor. Though he's beaten, stripped of his title, and kicked out of the castle, this Skeksis does not give up. He's constantly watching over the Gelflings, from the fall of Algro's tower, to finding them at the Podlings' home, at the ruins, and then watching from them at the mountain, entering the castle below. He wants to no longer be an outcast, but he's also very witty. He knew to get back in the hierarchy by finding Jen. It's even possible for him to get the essence if he is able to become the emperor.
The story runs deeper than you know, and you are part of it.
There isn't enough time to talk about the passion that went into this film, and it shows. Just the fact that the characters are puppets shows a lot, and it made an impact. These creatures are overflowing with so much detail, and just them alone are a work of art. But then you add it all into the film, and it's phenomenal. It adds a unique style because these creatures move differently. Not one of them seems to move the same exact way. Clearly Fizzgig is just a ball rolling around and causing a riot. Or the crystal bats flying in the high sky, to the comparison of the collapsible Gartham. They did such a great job that you can see a lot of the emotion in the characters, which is something animation struggled for years after this movie's release. They put in extra work to keep their characters looking how they were supposed to. Perfect example is when Kira gets some of her essence drained. While every other character that was drained went from looking like a cool character to a decaying Yoda, Kira was more discreet. And to be honest, it was a detail I never was really sure about until we saw this on the big screen for the 40th anniversary. You see her remaining drained until she reunites with Jen shortly after. She even moves slower in the chamber. I feel like this goes almost without saying at this point, but of course the music was fantastic. You can't have a great fantasy movie, let alone a good story, without an awesome score to help enhance everything. It's also wonderful to see the support that this world has gotten. Besides the Netflix show that I will never forgive them for canceling, they also have numerous comic series and books, and the artwork is just fantastic, and unique enough that it feels like it belongs in this universe. And I do plan on reading all of them once I can get my hands on all of them. When they were talking about making the Netflix show, they did briefly mention the idea of having it animated, and while I still would have watched the show to support it, it's hard not seeing them in puppet form. I personally love seeing the puppets and everything they can manage to do with it, and it's unique. It's a lot of extra hard work, and not everyone is brave enough to try it, but we always appreciate it. Also, someone who knows more about the lore than I do, how long does a podling live? Because I'm pretty sure this dude was Hup. This movie is an absolute classic, and I really hope we see more from this world soon. Who's your favorite character from the movie? Have you seen the show or read any of the books? Let's keep the conversation going down in the comments, and until next time, stay nerdy and keep binging.